President Donald Trump's health secretary, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., is admitting that, whoops, turns out I fired too many people. I need to undo some of that.
Whoopsie.
Oh boy. Now, the Health and Human Services Secretary announced last week that he would be cutting about 10,000 federal jobs in an effort to reorganize the health department. On Monday, the layoffs were already in motion. However, Kennedy is now admitting that I think I made too many cuts. Oops. But then said, well, I mean, this was kind of always the plan, to be fair. Quote, we're streamlining the agencies. We're going to make it work for public health, make it work for the American people. In the course of that, there were a number of instances where studies that should not have been cut were cut, and we've reinstated them. Personnel that should not have been cut were cut. We're reinstating them. And that was always the plan. It was always the plan, everybody. Always the plan. Ah, yes, of course. Nothing spells efficiency quite like mass firing people and then panic rehiring them. Much efficient. Such wow. He added that Elon Musk's non-department Department of Government Efficiency had mistakenly cut some programs and jobs that were not meant to be eliminated, particularly in human resources. Once again, though, Kennedy's like, that was all part of the plan. We got to go back and fix Doge's mistakes. Wait, why allow them to make these mistakes in the first place? I mean, that's one of the big problems with Doge, right? Number one, they're not touching anything related to Elon Musk, which is clearly a lot of waste, I would say, in some of these contracts that he has. They're not touching that. They're not touching the Pentagon. They're not touching the actual real waste, fraud, and abuse. They're just going after poor people. Okay? So that's one of the problems with Doge. The other problem is how incompetent they are. Simple as that. I mean, I'm sorry, but big balls, not doing a great job. Okay? Hitting everything with a chainsaw and not a scalpel. Look, I support cutting wasteful spending. That's why we should cut the Pentagon budget. A lot of waste there. They can't even pass an audit. Okay? So, yeah, but Doge is not doing that. Not doing that, and they're deeply, deeply incompetent. So that's one of the problems, okay? In fact, he said, part of the Doge, we talked about this from the beginning, is we're going to do 80% cuts, but 20% of those are going to have to be reinstated because we'll make some mistakes. And it's not just about personnel, by the way. He will also be reinstating certain programs that were cut. One of them happened to have been a program that monitored the blood lead levels of kids. So obviously having high lead levels in your blood as a child is going to be problematic. It actually leads to a lot of intellectual disability, okay? Problems with learning, problems with reading, problems with violence. I mean, elevated levels of blood or lead in your blood does lead to people being more violent. That was one of the reasons why it was so important to be able to reduce the levels of lead in people's blood. Okay? Monitoring it to make sure that, we don't have all this lead in kids' bloods. Apparently we're just going to cut that. Oh, oops. Turns out that's a bad thing. You don't want lead in your blood. No kidding. No kidding. Here's what he said. There were some programs that were cut that are being reinstated, and I believe that's the one. Oh, what a relief. Yeah, what a relief, except that no, it actually didn't get reinstated. Eric Svensson, the director of the division that used to oversee the CDC's childhood lead poisoning prevention branch, had told ABC News that all work had come to an abrupt halt and that there was no news of when the program would be reinstated, if at all.
Whoopsie. Whoopsie.
So much for their plan of downsizing without impacting critical services. It's almost like they don't know what they're doing. like just randomly picking things to get rid of. And so far, entire divisions of the FDA, the National Institutes of Health, and the CDC have all been cut. I mean, you get Freedom Information Act requests, reproductive health, you got worker safety groups, you got HIV, violence and injury prevention groups, were also some of the programs that were swept up in some of these layoffs. And this is, by the way, also at a time where you have tuberculosis, measles, they're all making a roaring comeback as a result of RFK Jr. and his anti-vax tendencies. So the health department under RFK Jr. is a complete and utter disaster. It is a joke. Okay. I don't know. I'm starting to think that perhaps allowing the brainworm to run the department in charge of all of our health might not have been such a good idea. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe, hit the bell icon in order to get notified whenever a new video is released. And if you want to support independent, progressive media through this difficult time where it seems like everybody is shutting down, you can become a member on our YouTube page, you can become a subscriber on Facebook, or you can go to my Patreon. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf. Thank you.